and has new details right now. So, Jamie, let's start with the reporting about the call between House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the Joint Chiefs Chairman General Milley.
So let me just say the book has new details about what Trump was doing on January 6th during the insurrection, how Mike Pence kept asking if there was a way to help Trump, and what Trump says behind Kevin McCarthy's back. But let's start with Milley and Pelosi. What we know is that General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, took secret action to limit President Donald Trump's ability to order a dangerous military strike or to use nuclear weapons, according to Woodward and Costa. Just to set the stage, it's January 8th, 2 days after the assault on the Capitol, and Woodward and Costa reveal that Milley is deeply shaken by the attack, that he believes President Trump has become increasingly unstable and unpredictable since his election loss. And they also write that Milley believed Trump was in serious mental decline. It turns out that so does Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. She calls Milley because she's worried about the nuclear weapons. And after the call, Milley, he reassures her, but he thinks to himself, she's right. I need to act. He knows from intelligence from China that China is on the edge, and that China is concerned Trump may do a wag the dog, a military strike to stay in power. So Milley calls an extraordinary meeting. He calls the Pentagon War Room, and he brings in all the generals and the officials, and he says to them that as a precaution that he wants to make sure that they follow the proper procedures. And this, according to Woodward and Costa, is what Milley says, quote, "If you get calls, no matter who they're from, there's a process here. There's a procedure. No matter what you're told, you do the procedure, you do the process. And I'm part of the procedure." Now, technically, as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Milley is not in the chain of command, but remember, he is the top advisor to the president. And what he was doing here was just making sure that there were no illegal or dangerous orders. I think is overstepping his authority, but that Milley believed his actions were a good faith precaution against something dangerous happening.
It's really, I mean, that's extraordinary. There's also new detail in the book about what the former president was doing while attackers, rioters were breaking into the Capitol.
Right. So we've known that from past reporting that he was apparently sitting and watching television. But what Woodward and Costa report is that Pence's national security advisor, retired General Kellogg, is in there with Trump, and he's watching Trump, and he's watching it get more and more out of control. And he finally says to Trump, according to Woodward and Costa, "Sir, Mr. President, you really should do a tweet. This is out of control. They're not going to be able to control this. Sir, they're not prepared for it. Once a month." Trump said, "This guy called me every single day, pretended to be my best friend, and then he effed me. He's not a good guy. Kevin came down to kiss my ass and wants my help to win the House back." Look, as we know, Kevin McCarthy has one goal, to be Speaker of the House. That doesn't sound like an endorsement, Anderson.
It's really fascinating. Jamie Gangel, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Perspective now from two Republicans, CNN political commentator Scott Jennings, a former special assistant to President George W. Bush, and former Congresswoman Barbara Comstock of Virginia. Congresswoman Comstock, I'm wondering what you make of this new reporting.
Well, I think the American people should thank Vice President Dan Quayle, first of all. That was solid and good advice. None of this information is too surprising. What is happening now with these books and what will happen with the January 6th committee and the subpoenas and the texts and the emails that come from all of these people close to the president, we are going to see it in a lot more detail. And unfortunately, as we get more detail, it is going to look even more awful for Donald Trump, because every time you think you're in the basement of awfulness with Donald Trump, there's another basement below it. But the great news, and I think that is coming out in these books and will come out in the hearings also, is that you had Republican officials, even within his own White House, certainly within his administration, who said no to him. And you also had officials in Arizona and Georgia and other states who also said no, and unfortunately are paying political consequences, but I think history will reward them. And a party that keeps trying to hitch itself to this sore loser who's a dangerous but a very diminished and unpopular politician is going to be a losing party.
Scott, I mean, do you believe General Milley did the right thing?
Well, I think he probably would say he did the only thing he could do, which is try to keep things on the rails, long enough for a new president to take over. And although, as you know, Anderson, I've been quite critical of what Donald Trump did in the aftermath of January 6th and in the events leading up to January 6th, I'm very concerned about the prospect of our military leaders, in this case, our top military commander, essentially going around the president, going over the president, having secret meetings inside the government, according to some reporting in this book, maybe even calling China, which is our adversary, and having conversations with his counterpart over there. To me, as concerned as I am about a commander-in-chief being off the rails, I'm also concerned about our unelected military leaders doing things that are not in the character of a civilian-run military. So this entire episode, to me, is extraordinarily concerning, and I actually think General Milley has some questions to answer about what he did. To me, if he was that concerned, Anderson, he should have gone public. Instead, he kept all of his concerns private and did things privately, and although some will applaud him, I think we have to have a public account.